Free range parenting started with a op-ed in the New York Daily News, what, 10, 12 years ago?
Oh my God, yes, at least that. It was in the New York Sun, and it was why I let my 9-year-old ride the subway alone. And 2 days after the op-ed appeared, I was on the Today Show, MSNBC, Fox News, and NPR. Got sort of raked over the coals. Got the nickname America's Worst Mom. Stuck with that. That's, now I wear it with pride. And that weekend, I went home and I started the Free Range Kids blog to say, I love safety. I love helmets and car seats and seat belts and mouth guards. I mean, you name it. I think I'm a nervous, normal mom, but I trusted my kid to do something that he felt he was ready to do, that we had to think about and decide, yeah, we thought so too. We being me and my husband, who is never America's worst dad. Nobody cares. He could do whatever he wants. And then gradually the blog became a book, and then the book sort of became the Free Range Kids movement.
And it is a movement, and it is, and people know it. It is a brand. I say, oh, I know, Lenore Skenazy.
It's just a question on
Kids, and
Jeopardy.
Like,
or not Jeopardy, whatever Ken Jennings show is. It was like, what kind of parenting does Lenore Skenazy favor? My friend just texted me. It was this week, and it's like,
oh, your name. They use your name.
Yeah, I got name checked and movement checked.
The American canons.
Yeah.
You win. You're good. That's on your Wikipedia.
Finished,
page
right? I can leave.
Right.
Goodbye, Emma. This was great. We've acknowledged and worshipped me. I'm done. Right.
Well, I have to say, so I think about your work all the time because we have very similar backgrounds. We're journalists and writers. We're moms, but the work that you've done, so, okay, it was a book, it's a movement, you turned it into public speaking. Now you run LetGrow, which is an institute, an organization that works on policy work around helping parents. Tell us what LetGrow does.
Oh, so LetGrow is a nonprofit that's solely devoted to promoting childhood independence and resilience. So some of what we do is policy related, but we have a blog, or we do speaking, we do a lot of school programs. And I think we're going to be talking about those because the way that I've seen it's the 9-year-old on the subway is now 22. You'll see him walk behind me at some point. He's off to work. So what I realized in all those years of talking to people and discussing, their childhoods, and don't you want to give that to your own kid? And people say yes, but then they couldn't move. It's like one thing to change somebody's mind or even heart, but another thing to change their behavior. So when we started LetGrow a few years ago, and it's not just me, it's 4 of us founded it. Our goal was to change behavior, come up with easy ways of letting parents see for themselves how outrageously competent and independent their kids could be, because that's what changes parents, is seeing their kids be happy and successful, doing something new, blossoming. Me talking, unfortunately, does not turn the switch.
This is so good. Okay, so the reason that I wanted you to come on today and speak to the shared parenting movement is because I see you as a great expert in media and messaging and changing hearts and minds, and now taking it full circle and changing behavior and really creating social change. While you are active in policy, that's a pretty recent thing. But I look to you so much because another parallel. So you are helping parents understand that this overprotective, overparenting, I will say, I don't know if you would say that, overparenting of children, never letting them out of your sight. Parents really believe that is really good for their kids. And you're helping them understand that it really is not good for the kids, and it's not good for the parents. It's not good for our society. And I see that very parallel to the work I'm doing. I'm very empathetic to mothers who really do believe that it is best for children to have them with them primarily when there's a separation or divorce. And they really do believe, because there was a whole body of research 40 and 50 years ago that suggested it was best for children when they had one primary home after divorce, and then they could go visit the other parent, the dad. Moms really do believe this. So I see it as my work, some of my work, to help moms, to help women and women overall understand the science, understand what's in it for them. And
what's the science of what?
Of child welfare. So in the case of my movement, it is best for children when they have 50-50 parenting. It is best when they have equal time with moms and dads. And there are dozens, at last count, 60 peer-reviewed studies, meta-analysis of the studies, this is what is best for moms, or this is what's best for children, what is best for children. And now there's another parallel body of research that's showing this is what's best for dads. This is what's best for moms. This is what's best for gender equality. This is what's best for our court system. This is what's best for our economy, right? Because it allows
Wow.
men and women to work equally. So I'm always, harping on the science, but also illustrating and using storytelling. But it's taken me years. I mean, I've been working with single moms for almost 10 years now, Lenore, since I started Wealthy Single Mommy. And I did not get this right out of the gate. It's taken me 8, 9, 10 years to work on the messaging, to work on the projects, work on the tools. I commissioned a video. I'm doing surveys, which are, studies of my own now, which turn into media projects. These are not things I learned overnight. I've been working on these skills for literally decades. I've been in, like you, I've been in media for more than 20 years. I've been honing this. So I want to hear from you, because you're multiple steps ahead of me in this work, in this activism.
Steps ahead of you. I think it's so interesting. We did our first survey this year, and it was once COVID hit. Weirdly enough, what we've been saying all along is the strange thing about childhood today is that it's so structured and adult supervised. I guess what you're suggesting is it's often mom supervised. I'm sure that's true. But we always felt that what kids need is some free time just to figure out what interests them, just to do some stuff on their own, do some stuff that isn't for school or for mom or the teacher or the grade or the resume or the college. Just give them some freedom, because we've always had that as a species. And it's strange that suddenly everything was so, we thought it was optimized, right? You're going to have an adult teaching you something that's certainly better than you just kicking around a ball in the alley. You'll go to soccer lessons. And then one of the co-founders of LetGrow is a guy named Peter Gray, who has spent his whole adult life. He's a psychologist. He wrote the big psychology textbook that kids read in college. But really what has interested him is what kids get out of mixed stage, totally unstructured free play, and how they learn to deal with each other and come up with ideas and solve their problems. And so where was I going with this? So we put these programs we made them into programs, but what we did at the beginning of COVID, sorry.
Oh, you just froze. Go on. You got it. Go ahead.
Okay. Anyway, so long story short, you do surveys. And what we realized at the beginning of COVID, when suddenly there was no school and no extracurricular activities, in a way, it was a LetGrow experiment, right? Suddenly kids had all this unstructured time. Their parents were busy. They were, trying to figure out Zoom at the time and trying to save their jobs if they could. And so we did the survey of 1,600 children and 1,600 parents across America and across the economic spectrum, race, everything. And what we found is that when kids had this free time, indeed, they did start doing all these new things on their own. I mean, 70-something% of parents said the kids were helping more around the house. When we asked kids, what new things are you learning just for fun, not for school? Everything from origami, gangster videos, learning about bugs, taking pictures. One girl was learning Bitcoin, and gosh, now I envy her. An 8-year-old, she's probably like an 8-year-old Emma. Well, I've got the free time. Let me start doing some cryptocurrency.
They're bored.
Yeah, they're bored and destructive. No, they're bored and constructive. I mean, they were making blogs. They were, nobody's doing blogs. They were doing blogs and they were doing TikTok videos.
So it was
but
success.
The point is that a survey,
success.
it was, and also it was the first time we'd done a big survey like that. So the fact that you think that you're behind me and you were already commissioning a survey shows that no, actually, these ideas don't come instantly. A lot of the ideas that I'm doing came to me from people who said, Lenore, why don't you just try to pass a law? Or Lenore, why don't you try to do this in the schools? I was like, Lenore, why don't you make a little card that kids can carry when they're walking around that says, I'm not lost. I'm, my parents know where I am. You can call them if you don't, call my lawyer. So anyways, the point is that you get a lot of ideas as you go along. Nothing springs fully formed.
Right. But what I see you doing is lots of new things. You're always trying new things, right? You're not just screaming about the issue and injustice. You are constantly iterating and learning and learning what connects with people and growing, right? And the project is growing and morphing as you learn and fail and achieve. So that's what I'm hearing. So let's just like hone in, because really what I want, my goal with this is, I will set an intention, like a yoga class.
Okay, right,
And
good, because I don't have one, I just ramble,
intention-
right?
my intention is to learn from you and what you've achieved and your failures. Learning about media and marketing and messaging, right? Because because you know a lot. I bet you know. I'm hearing that you know a lot more than you realize.
I'm very curious. Yes. Okay. This is good for me too. It's like therapy. Right.
I will tease it out at you.
Great. Then we'll write a grant. Right.
Yes. That's a whole nother thing, the big money. But anyways, so let's dial this back. So you were a daily columnist at the Sun. This is when we met, I remember. And you wrote this, it was a weekly or bi-weekly column, and it was just another column that you wrote. And next thing you know, you were all over the news. And so the reason that it hit was because it was so polarizing. It triggered something in everybody that read that, right? Either people loved it or they absolutely thought you were the worst mom in America.
Yeah.
And that was key, right? It was key. But what I see from that is that if it is so polarizing, that is the magic. Because it touches everybody. If you have a strong opinion, then, oh my gosh, go with it, right? Run with the hate, because the hate is touching on something very visceral in
the
those
hate
people.
You get. Yeah.
Right? It's important.
Yeah. I mean, I've thought about it too. There's a couple of different things that I think made it hit. One is that I put my own son on the subway. I wasn't saying one should put one's child, give one's child freedom. So that made me a lightning rod, and that's easier. What I've learned since then is that this certainly is a culture that likes to rag on moms. So there was that. But what's interesting about our country is that most of today's parents, in another 10 years, it might not be the case, but most of today's parents remember a free range, let grow kind of childhood. And they generally remember it through a haze of nostalgia. And so they remember getting on their bikes or walking around or being bored and going to the park or knocking on someone's door and finding a friend to play with, not just random doors, mind you, their friend's door. And so there wasn't just the tension between Lenore did this and would you, I don't know, but between their own childhoods and what they're seeing today. And that was just a sort of shock. I mean, it was people recognizing, like, come to think of it, I walked to school at age 7 and now I'm standing next to my kid at the bus stop and she's 10. It was just a way to press pause for a second and look at your own life and wonder, how did we get here? So it was personal for everybody. And I was a lightning rod, I guess. And then also after the initial flurry of talk shows, which was just, a barrage that first week, I thank God my husband understood how to start a website, which I didn't know how to do back then. It was the 9-year-old is 22, so you can do the math. And so he got me online and I started, and I gave it a title, Free Range Kids. And by the way, I trademarked it. And so that was very helpful, because then the journalism skills of like constant blogging and being able to keep talking about the issue, there was a place for people to go. And just talk about the same things. Like, I want to let my kid go outside, I'm afraid, or what will the other parents think of me? Or she doesn't want to get off the couch, what do I do? So it was just a way of creating a community, which I think you're doing with Wealthy Single Mommy, right? It's a place where
I do. So there's Wealthy Single Mommy, which is my business, and that's a very general project for single moms, but then the Moms for Shared Parenting is very narrowly focused on this activism work. But I just want to distill a couple of the takeaways here. So one, it was recognizing the universality of it, right? Everybody had a childhood. And I always say this about parenthood. It's like, it's so overwhelming. The stakes feel so high. And so our point of reference is always what we know. And it's either we're defaulting to what we know or we're rejecting what we knew. Yeah, we're redefining it. And sometimes we try to redefine it, but we just default because we're fallible humans, and the kids are really pissing us off in that moment. And so we yell, even though we swore we never would. So, right. So it's that, but it's overall, what I heard you say was, it was positive, right? You connected with a positive memory, a positive point of view, or a point of reference for them. Right. Which was, again, I know I'm not criticizing what you're doing now. I'm helping you remember how it was good. And I'm going to help you return, like, get your family back to that positive thing and hold your hand. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Right.
And when
And
they
it
came
wasn't,
to,
sorry, and I just wanted to say it wasn't a fake thing. You know,
no,
sometimes people think like, oh, back in the days when, you know, all organic food was delicious in the Middle Ages. It's like, I don't think so. I think people were eating gruel with like lumps of rat in it. I mean, but this is like, this is remembering your actual childhood, right? So it's not me pretending that you had a childhood. It's you remembering your actual life.
right. It's helping the person, it's helping the reader or the viewer be their own hero, is what you're trying to help them do. You're making them the hero of the story.
I didn't think of it that way, but maybe what I really am is just I think that we all go along with the flow for the most part in whatever our culture is, and I'm sure I do it 99% of the time. You know, I'm drinking coffee for breakfast. What could be more trite? But there's all I was doing is like saying pause, press pause. Now let's do a split screen. Here's what kids are doing today. Here's what you were doing. I mean, it's like all those memes, you know, we survived the 70s. We drank from the hose, you know, did you have an 80s childhood? Goonies unite. But it was a way to get the whole country thinking about like, that's true. It is so strange that, you know, my mom trusted me to play outside till the streetlights came on. And I am driving my kid 5 afternoons a week to the park and sitting on the bench, bored out of my mind because I'm not allowed to let her do anything on her own. So it was just, there's this big tension between the past and the present. And I think I brought it into focus.
Right, right, right. And then the part about the blogging, the listening to people, giving them a space to work it out and supporting them empathetically, right? Yeah.
Sorry, let me just jump in a sec. You know, it was supporting empathetically just because I'm interested, but less was it, you know, oh, Lenore, I feel so bad. Oh, don't worry, honey, you're fine.
No.
It was more like, Lenore, did you realize this is happening in my neighborhood? No, what's happening? Oh, we're doing trunk or treats. What's trunk or treat? Trunk or treat is instead of trick or treat, all the cars make a circle in a parking lot and the kids go from car to car and get the candy. And that way they're never out of sight and they never have to knock on somebody's door and be embarrassed or anxious. And it's like, so that would be something that I would learn. So everything I've learned is because people wrote to me as a place to write to, and then I served as like the magnet and then the megaphone. But I wasn't just the megaphone myself because, you know, I hadn't really focused on parenting per se in my entire journalism career. I was just a features reporter writing about anything that interested me. So I would say that I became the expert thanks to people writing to me and me reading all their letters.
But I've learned in my work over these many years that just giving a place for people to share, even if I don't have time to write back, that is therapy. It is really, it helps because they have to think, you know, I mean, there's, you know, like I'm an analyst, let's say, because there is an exercise in them working through their own ideas. They hear their truth and when they're sharing, right? So that's value. I feel like that's a service. At this point, I get hundreds and hundreds of messages and emails every week. And I let people know that I read everything. I can't always respond, but I do feel like that is a service to people. So there's that. But what I'm hearing you say is you listen, right? You had an idea about this issue, a seedling of it, but over the years it has grown and matured and become more educated because you are humble enough to listen to all these voices come in.
Oh, humble me. I'm so humble.
And so glamorous,
I'm most right. I'd say mostly curious. Yeah, just curious. It's interesting. Yeah.
Right, but you've taken yourself out of it because I'll speak for myself. When I started doing this work, I mean, my whole opinion about this shared parenting thing has come up because of my own personal family experience, but also because of this work. I started this thinking that the kids should be with moms. I had majority time. I was informed, like, if I were not humble enough myself, and I wasn't humble at the beginning, I like to pick a good fight on social media. Like nothing gets me more satisfaction. My boyfriend says he can tell when I'm in a fight on social because I can type really loud, like funny people.
It's like a gun.
Yeah, right. So, but if I had not listened and just observed and just teased out these, because I'm in a fortunate position where I've got millions of data points every year from single moms interacting on my different platforms, and listen to those anecdotal stories, tease out into trends and narratives, I would not be able to do this work because I'd still be stuck in these old ideas, deciding that I know what's up because I just said so, right? Right. So it's listening is so critical to this. And it goes, like you said, it goes both ways. You were the recipient and the megaphone. And That's true, because that is your core skill. Like, you are a journalist and a communicator, and you're able to do that really effectively. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, really it is. I think, I think like just grateful that there is this perch so that I do get to see so much, because really, what is a journalist? A journalist is somebody who's interested in my case, in American culture. And this happens to be the segment of the American culture I'm seeing. I'm not seeing how they're saving money. I'm not seeing whether they're learning hip hop dance. I'm just seeing how they are thinking about what is the role of parents and what's best for kids.
So can you share so do you feel like you have honed in on a message that has helped people change their minds, right? Where, like you said, there's a split screen. How do you get there? Like, if you talk to me or you talk to somebody else that wants to change people's minds and ultimately behavior, right? That is, I mean, there's tons of research about that. That is so hard to do, whether we're talking about Washington politics or what brand of laundry detergent, getting people to change their minds and then forget about their behavior. It is just one of the hardest things that anybody can set off to do. And so what were some mistakes that you've made, and what have you learned? What can we learn from you on your journey?
The mistake I made is that I could change anyone's mind. Sorry, Emma, maybe you want to press off right now.
No.
But I don't think I can change a mind. And really, so for 10 years, when I was just free range kids by myself, when I went around the country giving talks everywhere from, Microsoft to a PTA, I would see everyone nodding along, because once again, we're talking about like they remembered, oh yes, I loved going outside and playing. Oh, we used to play Mother May I. I used to go to the basketball with my friends. And what was fun is that everybody ended up agreeing, even people who came a little skeptical, right? But what was unfun is that nothing else changed, right? Everybody still kept walking to the bus stop with their kids and waiting there, and feeling like they had to be with their children all the time, and that they should drop everything if their kids were drawing or saying something. And it felt like okay, so now there's a recognition. I don't want people to feel bad about themselves, like to have them be perfectly fine. And now I come in and now they are doing the same thing, but feeling bad about themselves. That seems like a lose-lose situation. And that's sort of what was happening. And so when we started LetGrow, which was started by me and a guy named Daniel Schuckman, who used to be the head of FIRE, which fights for free speech on campus, and Jonathan Haidt, who wrote The Coddling of the American Mind, they were worried that kids seemed very fragile. By the time they got to college, they were breaking down. I mean, the numbers are bad, in terms of whatever, depression and anxiety, and going to the counseling services, which I love. I'm pro counseling services. My God, I've had a lot of counseling. I'm a Jew in New York. What do you think? I'm like Woody Allen Jr. without the backstory. So the point is that
without the HBO special.
Right. No HBO special for me yet. Although have there been, there actually is a documentary coming out, but it's pro. Anyways, the point is that, what was my point? My point is that we started
changing
LetGrow.
minds. Yeah.
Yes, right. So what is my point? There she goes again. The point is that changing minds was not enough. And so when we formed LetGrow, our goal was to change behavior, because you change a lot more minds after you've changed behavior than the other way around. You can keep saying like, you're going to love vegan food. It's going to be great. Yeah. But you have to serve this delicious vegan meal. And people go, what is this? And you go, guess what? It's vegan, which by the way, I'm not. I'm just using it as an example for things to then change like, hey, that was great. And so LetGrow, to change behavior, we have 2 programs that we are pushing for schools. And by pushing, I say offering for free. So it's not like there's money involved, but one of them is the LetGrow project, where kids get the homework assignment from their teacher that says, Mom, guess what? My homework today is I have to do something on my own without you, something new. And the parents are like, wait a minute, this is homework? It's like, yes, I have to do something new without you. And because it's a homework assignment, and because the parents trust their school, and because all the other parents are now doing it in the classroom or the school or the district even, That gives parents the push. So the parent looks at this list that we give, and you don't have to do something on the list, but the list is, climb a tree, make a muffin, run an errand, go to grandma's house, whatever. The kids say, well, grandma's just 2 blocks away. How about I do that? And I'm like, all right, you got to do something. It is a homework assignment. And so then the kid goes off and gets to grandma's house, and grandma says, oh, it's so nice, Leslie's here. Nobody's named Leslie. Ava's here. It's so great to see her. And then, a few hours later, Ava comes walking home again. It's like, I had so much fun, and I met a squirrel, and it was great. And it was so, I never noticed all the flowers that are growing here. I mean, really, kids are so excited when they do something on their own, and they're so proud. And the mom or the dad at home, seeing the kid come through the door, that's what changes people. It's the only thing that changes people. I don't change people. Their children change them, because parents are hardwired to worry, but they're also hardwired to just go look at my kid when their kid starts doing something great and independent. Your heart bursts with joy. And so what we realized is go for the experience. And the other LetGrow thing that we're trying to get into schools is called the LetGrow Play Club, where schools stay open before or after school for free play. And mixed ages, no devices, no rules, no parents. There's an adult in the corner crouching with an EpiPen, but the kids have to make up their own games. They have to come up with something to do. They have to solve their own arguments. And that way kids get used to doing all the things that happen through play, which is negotiations and compromise and communication and empathy. Because now you have a 12-year-old, throwing the ball gently to the kindergartner because you don't want to see who's the best, baseball player if you're playing with a 5-year-old. So these two things, getting kids back into an opportunity for regular free play, just like no holds barred, and having them start doing things on their own that the parents then see they can do on their own, are the linchpins of LetGrow at this point. Because me telling you that your child is not going to be kidnapped, if you wanted your kid to be kidnapped by a stranger, how long would you have to keep them outside unattended for this to be statistically likely? I can tell you, you can even guess, Emma, unless I've done this with you before.
Oh, I know. I know it. I'm like your biggest fan. I like to cite your stuff all the time. But here's what the takeaway is. So it's all those things. Well, first of all, it's the authority figure mandates it. In this case, it's the teacher. So it takes the responsibility off of the hands of the parents. They don't have
you're
right.
Yes, indeed.
It
It's like
absolves them. It absolves
the
them
guilt.
of a choice, and the choice they don't have to make a choice, right? And they don't have to initiate it. Like maybe they know they should let the kid walk to grandma's house, but they just right. So that
it hasn't happened yet. I'm going to wait a little longer, wait a little longer, wait a little longer, and then the kid's driving to grandma's house. So yeah,
right. But it pops their cherry. It does. It does, because I mean, I'll just speak for myself. It's like you get over that first one. So my daughter is just turned 13, and she goes to an art class that is just, I mean, honestly, for me, a lot of this, I just don't feel like I don't want to be with my kids all the time. And it's good for her. Like it's stupid. I don't want to do that. I don't want to run my kids around all the time. So she started taking the subway by herself, and it's not a great neighborhood. It's, by right off of Queensboro Plaza. It's not really great over there. Anyways, but she can do it. So she takes the train, and I'll tell you, the first couple times she did it, I was nervous. I was like, you have to text me, which is so stupid. Kids got around before texting their moms 3 times to get to an art class, like when we were kids. Yeah. So I was that mom. I was nervous, but she went twice. She came back super proud of herself with a little bounce in her step. And I got over it, and I don't worry anymore, but I had to get over that hump. Right. I had to do it. And so if we take this back, circle back to the shared parenting, I think a takeaway is, I mean, our minds go to who's the authority. It's going to be a judge or a lawyer that's like, all right, you got to do 50-50, or a family therapist. But it can also be, I think there's a lot, especially on Instagram, a lot of really great influencers and celebrities that are saying we're doing 50-50 and it's great. Like some of the Kardashians are doing 50-50.
I'm not sure we all want to follow exactly what the Kardashians are
some
doing.
People do. I don't know who these people are. I don't understand how their bodies work. They're so weird. But anyways, but like Ryan Reynolds is doing 50-50 with his wife, and they're not, that is a permission, right? There's lots of different ways to give permission for people to do it. And then what I'm hearing you say, which is so human, it's like, once you see how great it's for your kids, and then once you see how good it is for you, right? You get the free time. And it's a very similar parallels. You get that.
It's both time. Freedom. Yeah. It's trusting someone other than yourself, and sort of trusting the universe a little bit. I mean, really, I feel like this distrust that we have that, the kid waiting at the bus stop is going to be snatched, that going on a sleepover is going to be dangerous, that everybody is out to get our kids. That is superimposed on us. I don't see other cultures feeling this, and other eras didn't feel this. And sowing distrust is like the worst thing you could do for the world. I mean, it makes you mean, it makes you scared, it makes you close ranks, it makes you less generous, it makes you suspicious. It might be why we have mass incarceration. It's like, oh, don't lock them up for a year, lock them up for 20 years. We just, so it feels like the great evil in our society is the idea that the only person you can trust is you. And that's what parents have been told regarding their kids. So that's why the parents,
let's be real. That's what moms have been told.
Is that what moms have been told?
Well, we know, I mean, by every metric, we judge a woman's
Extremely
worth
harsh.
according to her motherhood, and we judge disproportionate to men, and we judge men according to their ability to be breadwinners. And that is what keeps us stuck. I mean, there's a whole body of research around that. Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna mention one interesting study. Do you know about the Kids in Cars study that was done?
You've mentioned it. You brought that to my
Irvine?
attention,
Yeah.
but tell us about that.
It's just a really great study. It was, so these University of Irvine social scientists, University of California, Irvine social scientists gave a group of people, they divided the people into 5 different groups randomly, and they gave them each the same scenario, which was, in one case, a child is waiting in a car for half an hour. Okay, not in a boiling hot place, just waiting in a car. And they gave the first group of people the information that the kid was waiting in the car because the mom had been returning a book to the library slot and hit by a Mack truck, was out cold for half an hour. Okay. Second group was told the mom had to do something very important for work, so that's why she let the kid wait for half an hour. Third group was told, I don't know, she's volunteering, she's exercising. The fifth group was told she was going to meet her lover, right? And then they asked, more exciting social experiment than most. So then they asked each of the groups, which hadn't known about the other scenarios, what level of danger do you think that child is in? And it wasn't exactly this, but the ones who thought that the mom had meant to be with her kid but couldn't because she was knocked over by the truck thought the kid was like in a 5. And then she was working, it was like a 6. And then exercise, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Lover 10. Ding, 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 ding. Oh my God, that kid is in so much danger.
Right. Well, partly because he was exposed by proxy to a mother who has a libido, which is the most dangerous thing in the world. We cannot have horny moms.
No horny
moms.
End
of society. Okay.
Yeah, mostly it was because the kid had a mom who was immoral. And so what was interesting is that the people all thought that they were judging danger, but they were actually judging the mom. Right. And so the way we think about the mom makes us think about like the way she's, her child is going to be hurt. Her child is in danger. And then once you think the child is in danger, you start judging the mom. So the reason I brought this up when you're talking about moms versus dads is they did the same study and they said a dad let his kid wait in the car for half an hour. First, he was knocked over by a truck. Secondly, he had to do something from work, blah, 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 meeting the lover. And for the dads, being knocked over by a Mack truck and going to work were the same because it was inevitable, because the dad didn't have any choice. With the mom, it already seemed like, why is she ignoring her kid and going to work when she should be spending every single second
because
staring
moms
at him?
choose whether or not they need to eat. Right. That's a whole nother
that's
thing.
Right.
Right.
Yes. So anyways, I think you're right. I think that moms are judged more harshly in general than dads. And what's weird is that we're both looking at the fact that somehow the country has come to believe that anytime a child is unsupervised, they are in danger. And so that means that somebody has to be watching them either in person or electronically all the time, which means that generally moms are stuck. I mean, there's all these studies, you probably do them. They're spending 7.5 more hours a week driving the kids and being with the kids than a couple of generation ago. And that's a whole work day that's spent with the kids. And people are spending more time, mothers are spending more time watching over their kids now than in the 70s when a lot of the moms were stay-at-home moms. I know my mom stayed at home and I went out. The stay-at-home mom used to stay at home and I would go out and play.
What you're talking about is it's a very important economy and policy thing that you're pointing out, because what you're saying, which I know very much to be true, is all those hours, those numbers are repeated ad nauseum, and the takeaway that the and I'm saying this as a card carrying liberal, feminist, East Coaster. I'm a cliche myself. Campaign my butt off for Biden Harris. But the liberal media will say, oh, she works so hard because mothers are these martyrs and dads are bums. But what you're pointing out is that these women are overparenting because, and I'm empathetic to them because of all this pressure to overparent, to spend all these frivolous hours because of this fear culture that we have. It is not because the dads are bums or because there is in like all those hours of childcare time are required, right? They are, a lot of them are by choice under a lot of societal pressure though. Am I
Yeah,
making
the
sense?
social norms changed, both distrusting the world so that your child can't be in it, and then the expectations for what a good parent does. I mean, it's not just the hours of being with them and taking them places. It's, making the organic food and a reading log. I mean, boy, I hated the
Oh
reading log.
Lord, it's so
Oh,
stupid. It
oh,
takes all the joy out of what could be like your lifelong love of reading. But I want
yeah.
to put a couple of caveats, keeping in mind our audience here, which is
Mhm.
specifically the shared parenting movement. So a couple of things. We don't think that dads are scrutinized in a parallel but different way. So, we assume they're the incompetent, bumbling doofuses that can't parent. And they end up losing their children because of it, because most states in almost every state in this country still defaults, right? There's still room in the legal system for a mom almost universally to argue the kids should be primarily with her or solely with her. And the dads miss out because of this stereotyping, right? Because we think that on one hand we pressure, and well, they're parallel and connected, that moms should be the better parent and therefore they are inherently the better parent and therefore have an obligation to be the primary parent,
I see.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and
Interesting.
that's a real big factor that's playing in. But I want to parlay this into your policy work. So you've been working at this for, let me just do the math, 13 years
You
or
got it. Yeah.
more. You've
Yep.
been doing the Hearts and Mind campaign for 13 years. And
And behavior.
now, right. And now you're working on the policy piece with some success. I know right out of the bat, you
Mhm.
guys got like, beginner's luck or success, and it had a law passed in Utah a couple of years ago.
Beginner's luck. That was a long time coming. That beginner's luck. Yes. So in
Okay.
2018, Utah became the first state to pass what they called a free range parenting law,
Mhm.
which said that letting your kids, play outside, walk to school, wait briefly in the car while you run an errand, or come home with
Or
a
see your
latchkey.
lover. You could see your lover.
Right. Really quick though. Really quick. Yeah. Like prime him. Talk on the phone as you're walking up. Anyways, none of that was going to be mistaken for neglect. And then, so Utah passed the law, and it got a lot of attention. And then we wanted to see if it could pass in, a variety of laws. Utah is, I always get the colors blue and red mixed up, but it's more Republican. So then we took the law to Colorado, and in Colorado we were doing great. We had bipartisan support, a Democrat and a Republican mom, black and white, and it sailed through the House, which was just great. I think it went through the House first. Yeah. And then it was about to go in the Senate, 3 days away from its vote, and COVID shut down
Mm,
the legislature, and they can't even bring it back up this year because they're just talking about basically COVID related and economy related
yeah,
issues
yeah.
in Colorado. But we do have a law being introduced today in Nevada, where once again it has bipartisan and actually bicolor support, and actually bi support. One is gay, one is straight. I mean, you cannot get a more universal issue than this
Yes.
one, which is that we got to trust parents who know when their kids are ready for some independence. And it doesn't say we're not going to have child protective services or the police anymore, but we want them to concentrate on the things that they want to concentrate on. A child who's really in peril, not a kid who's going to the park, not a kid who comes home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon because mom is working 2 shifts and, makes herself a snack and does her homework. Right. So we're narrowing the neglect law to say that the problem is not leaving a child in a situation where they may encounter some danger, because I could encounter some danger here. I'm right in front of a window. What if the squirrel comes flying through? But it has to be where there's likely, right, where they're blatantly ignoring real, significant, and statistically likely danger. Letting your
Mhm.
3-year-old play outside on the street is different from letting your 10-year-old walk out on the street. And we just want to give that prerogative and that perception back to parents, because they know their kids, they know their neighborhoods. Somebody walking by calling 911 to say, I see a kid outside. We want the CPS people to say, well, is the kid in distress? No. Are they playing in traffic?
But do you
No.
think that you would have so much momentum with the policy if you had not been doing this good work on the media and messaging stuff for the last 13 years?
Oh, absolutely not. No, I mean, it's part of what's good and what's a total disaster is that when I started Free Range Kids, I started hearing from parents who had been, had to CPS knock at the door because your kid was playing outside. And you heard the story of the Métis in Maryland who had their children 10 and 6 walking home from the park. You'll love this story. The mother was out of town when that happened. The dad let the children walk home from the park, but it became an entire story about the mom. So mom wasn't even there, but it was the mom. So, so the good thing is that people are outraged by these stories because they understand that parents know their kids. They understand that a 10 and a 6-year-old is not a 3 and a 2-year-old. And yet the government was treating it as if these parents hadn't cared whether children lived or died. And so there's a lot of umbrage on the part of the public. The public is really on the side of these parents. There was this case very recently where a mom left her children ages 10 and 2 at the Motel 6 while she worked her evening shift at a pizzeria down the block. And she was thrown in jail for 2 counts of endangering a child. She got out the next day on bail. And when that story went public, the public rallied to her support, which was so great. And she ended up making $165,000 on a GoFundMe that her mother had set up for her, which is great because now she's going to buy a house and the kids will be in a house. But what the bad part of the publicity about all those cases is that it also made parents think, well, I don't want to be thrown in jail for letting my kids walk home from the park or whatever. So while raising awareness, it also made people afraid. So the reason we have these 2 laws being presented today, and we have 3 more coming up in other states, is that we just want to make sure that the law reflects reality, which is that parents who give their kids some independence when they think that the child is ready for it and they know the child and they're not blatantly disregarding obvious and immediate and serious danger, hands off. That's up to them because parents have to be free to decide when their kids do things. I mean, parents always have been allowed to do that. If the kids are being beaten, starved, that's different. But if you're just saying, I trust you to come home and be home alone while I work my second shift, that's not neglect, that's reality.
Right. But the point again, what I'm hearing you say is, and also what I know, you're working with an organization, a nonprofit that you have funding, you have a budget. This is your full-time job. You have a salary. You're coming at this with decades of professional media journalism work. And then the specific thing, what we said, 13 years that you have been honing this method.
One story.
One story, and you have figured out how to connect with people, and you've learned and really perfected this. So when you come to those legislators, you guys have a budget for lobbying. You have a budget. I don't know if you're doing media spend, right? I mean, in terms of these campaigns, this is not just you, willy-nilly opening up filing a bill and going at it. This is a big concerted effort that you have been working on for a very long time, and that's well organized, right? So when you're coming to the legislatures, you tell me what that looks like. What are some of the messages that connect with the policymakers? Is it the stories? Is it the stats? Or a combination?
Right. Well, there's a couple of things. First is what we talked about with regular parents, which is that people remember their childhoods. The 2 women who are sponsoring our bill in Nevada both happen to have, the black and white, the gay and straight, the Republican and Democrat. They both were children of single moms, and they were given a lot of freedom and responsibility at a young age to, spend some time when mom was busy. Right. Mom was at the store for one of them. Mom worked at Caesar's Palace for the other one. And so they would hop on their bikes and they would go around the neighborhood. One of them remembered going to where there were model homes, and she and her cousin would go in and say, oh, our mom is thinking of moving. And they would get a tour. So they had and one remembered that her neighbor across the street, the child had grown. And so the neighbor across the street taught her how to bake and how to iron. I mean, they had very rich memories of what they did as kids. And they were grateful, first of all, for the independence. Secondly, they knew their mothers loved them and didn't put them in danger, but they trusted them. And they knew that their mothers couldn't have taken 24 hours a day to watch over them because they were single moms. So we connected with the legislatures. And then there's the other point, which is that thanks to the George Floyd protests, people are really focusing on like what is racist in some of the systems that we have.
Mhm.
And in terms of child protective services, it turns out that, do you know what percentage of Black children will be visited by CPS at some point in their childhood? Do you know?
Oh, I do not know, but it's high, I'm guessing.
It's 53%.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's something going wrong. The tripwire is too easy to start an investigation. And while the vast majority of investigations end up unproven, there's 7.8 million kids who are investigated every year, 7 point something million, nothing happens, which is great. But it also means that we're just really over investigating parents, and just having somebody come to your house, ask you questions, open your cabinets, look in your refrigerator, interrogate your children, and then they go, oh, you know, you're fine, goodbye. That's not just a no harm, no foul. That is a huge trauma. There's somebody in your house who has the power to take away your kids, right? So people recognizing the trauma of that and starting to hear some of these statistics, that's another reason that people are rallying behind what we call the Reasonable Childhood Independence Bill, because you have to be able to give your children some reasonable childhood independence without the threat of the government mistaking you for a parent who should lose their kids.
So I'm hearing a mix in terms of the messaging. It's you connected with these legislators to get on your side based on their positive experience, right? They're great advocates because they can share genuinely about these rich childhoods and the beauty of the freedom in a very pragmatic setting. They were kids of working single moms.
Right.
It's just life. It's real life. It's not glorified. It's real, right? So there's the positive part, and then there's the horrifying part, which is 53% of Black kids are going to be investigated. And so there's the science, there's the positive story, and the negative. It's showing a really big, full, rich picture. And then the nut of it is the science, right? Like, are we really spending how many billions of dollars a year to over investigate and basically traumatize these families? I mean, then that's surprising. That's another thing. It's a surprising. I just learned something new today. So that hits me. I'm just thinking about in terms of weighing that we can help people understand how communication works and how framing a story. Yeah.
Right. And I guess the third leg of the story is that kids are doing badly when they're feeling anxious and depressed and inside all the time and told that the outside world is too much for them, too dangerous. You know, they don't have the wherewithal to learn how to cross the street safely or to walk home safely or to play at the park safely. And the numbers in terms of depression and anxiety, and I don't even want to talk about anything worse than that, are up. Peter Gray, who's another one of our co-founders at LetGrow, is a psychologist, wrote the big psychology textbook. Anyways, he said that the rate of anxiety and depression is 8 times what it was, 8 times, that's like 800%, what it was in the 50s among kids. And this is using the same scale the whole time. And he believes that, of course, it's down because when we're just talking about life. When you have a life, when people trust you, when you get to be outside, when you get to do something that helps other people, you get to run the errand, you are trusted, you are responsible, you are growing up, you feel good. And when you are not trusted and you're told everything is too scary and you never have any free time, so you're micromanaged every day, think about that in terms of even if you had a boss who was micromanaging you.
Well, think about it in terms of this community. What if you had a co-parent that didn't trust you and a system that didn't trust you as a parent, and that you were micromanaged for the 2 weekends a month that you got your kids? It's the same thing that we're doing to dads in the society. What you're saying.
I didn't even know that. Who micromanages them?
Well, if they have to, the moms micromanage dads, even inside of a marriage, right? They're always having, this like stereotypical, like nitpicking, controlling mom in various degrees.
But are they legally doing this? Or are they just?
Well, right. So if we look at, I mean, if you talk to the single dad community or single dads in America, they will say that the moms insist on everything being done their way, that they have to be checked in, that the mothers are gatekeepers, right? If the dads want to do anything, they have to check with the moms first, right? And if they don't, or if there's any, if a kid falls off their bike or, you know, any kind of normal thing, it's going to be held against them. And we have a court system that is set up to incentivize that, or a court system that is incentivized to have parents fight, to be constantly watching each other. CPS cases in this community are off the charts.
Wow.
You know, so there's a lot of connection between what we're doing here. The CPS thing, you know, that is used as a standardized legal tool to help parents win at family court. You just file a case and they can be all the way from they're neglectful because the kid fell off the bike and scraped an elbow to there's a lot of false cases in terms of very serious child abuse allegations.
Wow.
And this is, and it's, I think it's getting better because our culture is changing for the better in terms of a move towards more equality, a move towards more low conflict, and understanding of how insane these are. People just can't afford it. If you're waging that kind of war in family court, that's expensive, financially expensive, emotionally expensive, time expensive. It's just a disaster for everybody involved. But that's just, I mean, talk to anybody in the family court system. I mean, this is just kind of like standard issue divorce court.
So, sorry, I just wanted to go back to one thing about the idea of a kid falling off a bike and somehow that being evidence of neglect. You know, that's back to this big picture that I'm talking about, which is that kids do fall off their bikes. And in fact, if they never fall off their bikes, then they might be scared to even ride fast or ride off the sidewalk because they've been told that it's such a disaster. I mean, such a disaster that, you know, at my kids' school, they would send home an envelope with a little letter in it whenever a kid fell on the playground. So minor, normal vicissitudes of life were rewritten as liabilities and real traumas and dangers, I guess. And that's, you know, I want everybody to take a step back from that and to start thinking about how resilient kids are. And one of the things Peter Gray talks about is that when we come into this earth as babies onto this planet, which is not to say we come from another planet, when children are born, let's say it that way, they are ready to be wired by all these experiences, and no generation of humanity has ever expected all those experiences to be good. And so with each scrape, you realize like, oh, that hurt, but now I'm back on the bike. And with each betrayal, like, I thought you were my friend, not anymore. You get a little bit of calluses. And what we're trying to do lately is to, you know, if you were playing guitar, right? The one time I used to play guitar, it's like you have to develop those calluses so that you can play the strings. But if somebody keeps going, ooh, your fingers, ooh, you shouldn't have to do that, that must hurt. It's like, yes, it does hurt, but it's on the way to this new ability to do something new. We keep saying we don't want those kids to fall off the bike, to scrape the knee, to have an argument, to be sad or bored one day. And what we're taking away is the ability to become a fully functioning human. So if the kid does fall off the bike, whether he's with the husband or the wife, that's not evidence of anything other than the fact that they were riding a bike. You ride a bike, at some point you're going to fall off it. So
right. Well, what I'm hearing you say, that message is really seeing and appreciating the humanity in everybody. Right. And I feel like in the movement that I'm working in now, it's really men against women. It really is. It is so divided. And I often say the moms that I've been working with for all these years, one of their number one complaints is that the fucking guys, the fucking dads will not show up and do their share. And they are right. And I 100% believe them. And then when I communicate with the dads, they will say, that fucking bitch will not let me see my kid. She keeps the kids from me.
wow.
And I 100%
so
believe them. They are 100% right. Everybody is right. And all of that is products of humanity, of our, you know, blame society that seems so ambiguous, but we are all set up to believe we are all products of a system. And what I'm hearing you say is you're speaking to the parents to say, look, you know, we are built for conflict. We are built for falling off of our bike and pain and suffering, and humans are resilient, and we have to be able to trust each other and say that that's okay. A parent, you know, you trusted the school when your kid came home with a bump, that the school isn't abusing him. We need to trust our neighbors when we see a kid wandering around, that the child is not an orphan. You know, as parents, we need to trust each other that the kid is 99% of the time going to be safe with the other parent, and not only safe, but thrive, because we know when we marginalize dads, they check out, and then we have fatherlessness. And I will say what you don't say, which is that suicide rates, mental health rates, addiction rates, physical, mental health, dropout rates are multitudes times the average kid that has a relationship with both parents. So this is where I think there's a lot of work.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, it's so interesting.
Yeah, that's a messaging thing. I'm going to do a whole nother piece about this, and I'll speak to this, my community here. We really need to be better about articulating this. And
I didn't even know that. That's really interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Our the standard issue divorce separated family schedule is the, you know, majority time with moms, minority time with dads, however that looks. And there's research that shows that when those dads are marginalized, it's so painful, right? The mom has upper hand, they lose control. You can blame them, tell them they should show up, but they won't. They will check out. And when it comes to the kids, just intellectually they internalize it. When they have a minority time with their dad, they're like, is my dad going to leave? Is my dad going to leave? And they have reason to fear that, because the dads do leave. But when they know it's 50-50 in their mind, it gives them a sense of security and comfort, that they don't have that anxiety. That anxiety is lessened for the entirety of the rest of their lives, because they know that they are equally important to both their parents, because the schedule, which may not be is probably not the dad's choice or fault at all. It is set up by the system. It is set up by our culture, the law system. So so just playing on what you're talking about in terms of being empathetic to one another, trusting one another, bridging these gaps that we have. And I mean, I don't know, there's CPS, that's a billion, trillion dollar industry. Like, they're financially incentivized to keep those caseloads up, right? Just like the court system.
Actually, I don't even understand CPS. And from the people I talk to, you know, who work in the system, you know, they don't want to be tormenting families that are fine. I mean, nobody feels good about that. Nobody wants to think, I'm going to go tear apart a perfectly great family. But there's just the ambiguity that any tiny little problem is considered evidence of perhaps something enormous. That's what's wrong. I mean, that's the same thing as, like, they fell off the bike. Does that mean that they're being beaten and abused? So we really sometimes, and I have to go.
Me too.
Because it's an hour. The alternative title, I mean, we have a bunch of slogans in our head for what LetGrow is. And the simple one is that when adults step back, kids step up, which I think people get. But in my mind, the overarching idea is give everyone the benefit of the doubt. You'll be happier. You'll be more correct, because most people do deserve the benefit of the doubt than being suspicious of everybody. Your world expands, your children expand, you get more freedom, you get more fun, and so does everyone. So I think we're both talking about the same thing. It's like, let the first assumption be, give people the benefit of the doubt. They're not trying to be mean or bad or cruel or stupid. And, you know, and if they disappoint you, or if there's proof, fine. But ipso facto, the first thing is, I believe in you.
I love it. Lenore, thank you. It's great. Thanks for your work.
Thank you, Emma. This was great too. Fun to see you again. And good luck repairing the world. That's what we're both trying to do.
Oh, good luck.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.